Hi, I'm Christine Saunders from the Spiraled Stem Floral Design, and welcome to our first episode of Focus on Flowers. This is an educational series where we take a question from a bride and I'll give you my insight as a floral designer. Hopefully this information will help you when you're planning the flowers for your wedding. Our first question comes from Amanda. She wants to know how she should budget for her wedding flowers now that she's starting on her wedding planning. And my advice is to think of the two biggest drivers for your cost of your wedding flowers. It's going to be your venue and your guest count. Those are really going to have the biggest impact on what your floral budget will be. So first, let's talk about the venue. It's all about proportion. If you were to have a backyard casual affair, then a mason jar of Gerber daisies may be appropriate and look really charming and fit right in with that environment. But if you're having your wedding reception in the ballroom of a five-star, resort or something, then a mason jar of Gerber daisies is just really not going to fit in right. It's going to look really underscaled, and that might be the appropriate setting for like one of those really tall big glass vases with a huge arrangement on top, which is gorgeous in that kind of a setting, but again would be out of place in a casual backyard event. So think about that when you're planning your wedding, because the venue is it's really about proportion. Like it's frustrating when you are in a really nice restaurant or a hotel or ballroom or venue or country club, and you only want to spend like $20 on a centerpiece. That's really going to get you not much more than a bud vase or something really small. So it's not just proportion of the flowers to the venue, it's also to the table. Because at a wedding reception, kind of the common table size is either a 60-inch round or a 72-inch round. That's going to seat 8 to 10 people at a 60-inch round or 10 to 12 people at a 72-inch round. So when you have a table set up, you have about a 2 to 3 foot diameter section in the center of the table that you need decor for. And so again, proportion. It's not going to really look right to have a bud vase or a little 3-inch square glass vase on this big center part of your table. You really need something of substance to go in the center of the table. So that's why a wedding centerpiece is going to cost a little bit more than what you might pick up somewhere at a florist, because it's that scale and that proportion that you have to think about for the wedding flowers. Otherwise, the table's just going to drown it if you don't have enough volume and substance for the center of the table. You might also consider the fact that some restaurants, if you're having a reception at a restaurant, you might be only seating 4 to 6 people at a table. Same with like cruises. If you're going to have your reception on one of those like a harbor cruise, typically they have a 36-inch round or a 48-inch round. 36-inch round is probably going to seat 4 to 6, and a 48-inch round would seat 6 to 8. So that is going to have an impact on the size of the centerpiece. That's actually where you would scale down the centerpiece, because some big massive centerpiece isn't going to fit on the table, because you also have to have your stemware and your favors and your butter dish and your cream and sugar and all that kind of stuff too. So really for your centerpieces, it's the proportion to the venue and it's proportion to the table. A really good guideline for what the cost of your centerpiece should be is equivalent to the per person cost for your reception. So if you're spending $50 per person for your reception, then that's kind of a good guideline for what your centerpiece should be. Something that's only going to be like in the $30 range may be underscaled, but if you're it might be out of proportion if you have these centerpieces that cost $350 and there's a huge crystal candelabra and all that stuff. Again, if you're at a really nice venue that's going to cost $175, $200 a person, then even having a $75 to $85 arrangement on the table might look underscaled. So keep that in mind when you are shopping around for your centerpieces and your flowers. The second thing that is going to affect your flower budget is your guest count. Bottom line, it's the law of multipliers. There are certain things with a wedding that are going to be a fixed cost. You know, your photographer, your dress, your makeup, those things really don't matter, you know, how many people you have. It's just, it is what it is. However, with the flowers, just like with the food and with invitations, and I'm trying to think of like another thing that is about your guest count. Food and invitations is really what comes to mind. That is totally driven by your guest count. So, like I said, you know, if you're going to have more people, the more tables you're going to have. And it also is a function of the size of the table. We talked about 36, 48 inch, 60 inch, and 72 inch rounds. So obviously the more people you can sit at a table, the less tables you'll have, and vice versa. If you are in a venue that's only, you know, 6 people per table, you're gonna have a lot more centerpieces, but they may be scaled down a little bit on an individual, you know, price basis. So your guest count's going to count. It's going to affect your table count, and also your wedding party. You know, 3 bridesmaids versus 6 bridesmaids, double the cost. Same with corsages and boutonnieres for your wedding party. If you're planning on having corsages and boutonnieres for your extended family, like aunts and uncles, or if you're having sponsors or something along those lines, that's all going to factor into your budget. Ceremony site. Depending on where you have your ceremony, some places, like some real formal churches, they may not allow much in the way of flowers at all. You may not be allowed to have petals on the aisle or attach anything to the pews. They may require that any altar pieces that are at the front actually be donated to the church, so you may lose out on the opportunity to move those to the reception and kind of get double duty out of those. And that's going to affect your budget as well. That being said, a lot of your pictures are going to be at your ceremony, and so if you are able to, you really want to, you know, decorate the aisle, put petals down on the aisle if you can, because it really is, it's just a beautiful photo opportunity. And you'll see on my website a lot of ceremony pictures that you know, that show that, as far as, you know, some real beautiful settings for the ceremony. It really creates a beautiful frame for those photos and for that whole experience. A lot of people say, you know, put your money in the reception because that's where guests are sitting, and that's absolutely true. But you will be having a lot of photographs at the ceremony that your flowers will be reflected in. So that's something, you know, just a couple things to think about when it comes to the cost of your wedding flowers. Your venue, so that everything's in proportion, and your guest count, because it's that law of multipliers. The more the merrier. I hope that my insight about your venue and your guest count helps you in planning the budget for your wedding flowers. Those are really the most important things to think about. So as a guide, I actually have a budget calculator that you can download down in the blog post information. It's a Excel spreadsheet that you can actually just plug your quantities in, and I have a price range from my package collections all the way up to high-end custom design. When we meet in a consultation, we'll actually refine that. That's really just a guideline to give you, you know, a kind of a low and high-end range based on, you know, those main drivers, your guest count really, and your wedding party size. So thank you so much for joining us on Focus on Flowers, and you can actually email me or post a blog comment with a question, and maybe we'll be able to address that in our next issue. So thank you so much. Please give me any questions. You can email me at christine@thespiraledstem.com, and we'd love to meet with you about your wedding flowers so that we can make your reception and ceremony just absolutely beautiful for you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.